Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, or as I mentioned in my last review, Harry Potter and his late daddy issues. I'm actually excited to talk about this one as opposed to the last two because this one actually has plot that reaches outside its own book and characters that don't get thrown away. So, what's the story? Well, Harry Potter ends up back at Hogwarts only to find that there's been an escape from the magical Azkaban prison where evil witches and wizards are kept, and that the escapee, a murderous Sirius Black, is on the run, and Hogwarts will be protected by Dementors, creatures which suck out your happiness, and have an excruciating effect on Harry because Harry has seen some real terrible things. Well, he was baby, but and that's the only terrible thing he's seen. They don't mention, when he killed a guy or was attacked by the giant snake. Anyway, so what we get though is that Harry is trying to avoid Sirius Black because apparently Sirius Black is after him. Why? Because Sirius Black is actually his godfather. We find out that Sirius Black betrayed the Potters to Voldemort and got Harry's parents killed. So Harry's all angry and vengeful. On top of that, we also meet this year's Defense Against Dark Arts teacher, Professor Lupin, who helps teach Harry how to fight Dementors by summoning a magic deer. It works. Turns out that Harry, Ron, and Hermione end up meeting Sirius Black, and that Sirius Black has several revealing secrets to tell them. Like that him and Remus Lupin are best friends, and that Remus Lupin is going to help Sirius Black, so he's betrayed Harry. And that Sirius didn't actually kill the Potters. It wasn't him who betrayed him. It turns out it was Peter Pettigrew, their other friend, who turns out to have been Ron's rat the entire time. And Snape knows these people and hates them all. Dun dun dun! So it gets soap opera-y near the end. And then they end up having this little adventure where they find out also, Professor Lupin is a werewolf! And he turns into a werewolf, and they have to run away from him. And this, in the meanwhile, in the mix of things, they lose Peter Pettigrew, who runs off to go meet Voldemort. So thus there goes their proof that Sirius is innocent. And then the Dementors come and get Harry and Sirius, but something drives away the Dementors. And Harry thinks it's his dad, that his dad might still be alive. And then he wakes up in the hospital like he usually does. But Sirius Black, still convicted of murdering the Potters, is going to die. So then Harry, Ron, and Hermione are like, well, we have to stop this because he's innocent. But, oh no, Ron's leg was broken. And even though we can heal breaks magically in just a second, we're not going to. But it turns out the entire year Hermione has been time traveling to take more classes. So she takes Harry on a 3-hour time travel adventure, Back to the Future style. And they fix everything, and they save themselves and Harry and Sirius and Lupin and this giant bird horse later. And everybody is safe, and Peter is back with Voldemort. So, why am I excited about that? Well, let me explain. When I talked about Harry's surrogate daddy issues, I wasn't joking. Harry shows some real big daddy issues, especially in this book. We've seen him attached to Dumbledore in previous entries, where he's defended Dumbledore and he talks about Dumbledore, but Dumbledore never does anything except show up in the end of the book and explain the plot. So when Lupin shows up and shows interest in him and tells him, I was friends with your father and you're very brave and you've done some very good things, and helps Harry to deal with his fear of the Dementors, then Harry bonds with him and gets this whole, daddy concept. Which I talked in my first video that Harry makes a great straight man because he makes decisions and has feelings that a normal person would. If you logically go to this, then Harry has been abused his entire life, living with the Dursleys and being told that he's not wanted. but the only father figure he's ever had. Now, again, he gets Dumbledore, but Dumbledore is usually pretty absent, so there's not much there. So the first male authority figure to show him affection and real attention, he clings on to and gets a surrogate dad thing. We actually see this happen again later. When we find out that Sirius Black is actually innocent, Sirius Black reveals that he's Harry's godfather, and that if he is cleared of all charges, that he would like Harry to come live with him. It explains more in the book how this made Harry feel, how excited he was to go live with Sirius, and how disappointed he was when Sirius eventually has to go back on the lam with the bird horse, and how just saddened he is that he doesn't get to live with Sirius. If you think about it, coming from a boy who every day of his life was told how much he's not wanted, how the people he lives with don't want him around, and how much of a bother he is, to hear somebody want him would mean so much to this little orphan, and they really play it. In later books and film, him and Sirius connect even closer, and Harry always has this dream of him and Sirius being a real family, which makes it even more tragic when Sirius eventually gets axed. I love this. This is how Harry would really react to these people. It's great character development. Also, one thing I do love too, this story, like I said, it moves on. All of these characters will show up later. Peter shows up in the next book. 2 books later, Sirius and Lupin become major players in the story. The consequences of this book reach all the way to the end. This means something. The first 2 books are more for setting up the world and setting up the characters and setting up everything. This one, we actually start moving into the plot. So I love that. In the film, we also get a new director, and sad to say we get a new Dumbledore because the guy who played Dumbledore the first time passed away. This new guy, he works. I think he's a good Dumbledore too. I'm just sad that we lost the first one. But what we get here, though, is this director stops thinking of making the books into movies and starts thinking of making movies based on the books. So you'll notice Hogwarts gets a change. The writing gets a change. They're not just quoting directly from the book all the time. They have dialogue in the film that's not from the book, and even jokes in the film that's not from the book. We also see the castle is more cinematic, is more visually interesting. There's that big clock tower that comes into play over and over again. I love the clock tower. And I've heard people complain that, it doesn't look like the Hogwarts from the first 2 movies. Well, move on. This is great. It feels more like a good movie than just a movie made from a book. So I really like this movie. Now, of course, it's me. It's Joe. I'm going to complain about something. So if I'm going to complain about something, I'm going to complain about Hermione. In the book and in the film, they hint that Hermione's got something weird going on because she's got double booked classes, and later it turns out that she's actually going back in time. Now, when you put something like time travel into your story, that's a very delicate piece to try to make work, because if you don't do it right, it's going to undermine a lot of things. In the How It Should Have Ended, if you've ever seen, go to howitshouldhaveended.com. It's a really fun website. I recommend don't watch the Pulp Fiction episode because it's kind of bad. But when they show How It Should Have Ended book 7 of Harry, or film 7 or 8 or whatever of Harry Potter, Snape uses Hermione's little time travel device to go back to the very beginning and fix everything. That's where my problem comes in, is that when you introduce something like time travel, then you're always questioning, well, why couldn't they go back in time and fix that? Why couldn't they go back in time and save Harry's parents? Why couldn't they go back in time and just destroy Voldemort? And they vaguely explain it in the book and in the film that witches and wizards who abuse time travel, terrible things happen to them. And yet, the Ministry is fine with giving it to a 13-year-old girl to take extra classes. That's like giving a kid plutonium to let him learn about radiation. What? No, if it's so dangerous and so volatile, you don't give it to somebody for something as superfluous as getting more grades. It wasn't even to get better grades, it was to get more of them. It doesn't make sense. And then when we see other things, like at one point in the fifth book, they actually end up in the Ministry of Magic where they say the Time Turners are. And we have a lot of big plot developments, and no one ever stops and thinks, someone grab a time turner, let's fix this. That's my problem with time travel. If you have it be a key part of your story, like in Back to the Future, where it's the entire story, then time travel can work really well. The same goes for something like Terminator. When you add it to a world that has all sorts of other elements, like when DC Comics or Marvel does it, and they already have witches and wizards and huge technology things and aliens, time travel seems to work, even though they hit and miss with it. Personally, I think that the X-Men have way too many characters who have traveled back in time to prevent their future. How many bad futures are there? Or are we just going, their bad future, and then the next bad future, and then the next bad future? Like, where is it going to get fixed? So, I don't like the time travel element. It undermines a lot of pieces in the story. It also doesn't make a lot of sense. Time travel, kind of a mess here. Um, Beyond that, like I said, this is where everything really picks up. This is where we start getting a better plot. This is where we start getting characters that last more than a book and a movie. So definitely a plus, even with the time turner. This one's definitely got some good stuff going on. Oh, and I should say, I also love how we're starting to develop Snape more as a character. He's now going after Harry's father and saying that he's actually more a part of this world. He's has a past that involves James Potter. This will come into play a lot in a few more books where we actually get like Snape's past, and that is really fascinating and is really great. He becomes a fantastic character, and this is really where it starts. So that's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Um, Join me next week for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, also known as Harry Potter and the Massive Waste of Time. See you next week.